And we were the first team of 2 at the time, or a little bit bigger now, to be able to look at it from an entirely human-centric approach. And we've been able to grow and develop and move away from, let's launch training that everyone knows is just here for compliance, to let's analyze behaviors. Let's use data. Let's be really data-driven in the decisions we make. And let's put people at the core of their own learning. Let's help them. Let's empower them. Let's not hit them with a stick when they do something wrong. Let's assume we didn't train them properly. And it's fantastic. And I think so much of that is a reflection on the Tesco culture.
My favorite bit of analytics is having no guidelines, no guidance, and being able to freely go and search through data and look for a story, hunt down a story, find something, an opportunity to improve, find something that's annoying people that they haven't verbally told you about, and, find a story we didn't expect to find. Like I said, that's the most fun bit, getting the freedom to go and look for an opportunity to improve for our customers.
So I possibly think this is my favorite thing about Tesco, is our women in tech community. So I've been part of the steering committee for the women in tech community that we have for the last couple of years now, and the kind of part that I play in it is really kind of looking to improve the marketing and comms materials that we share. So that education, like sharing people's inspirational stories. For example, these 2 women are definitely going to get a message from me later saying, come to our Empower Her series that we do on a monthly basis. And I think I could honestly go on for the whole podcast of how important having more women in tech roles is.
Today, we're joined by 3 phenomenal employees of Tesco who are going to talk you through some of the fantastic projects going on within Tesco's at the moment and give you a bit of insight into the culture within the business. So first things first, we're joined by Alisha Chambers, who is Head of Security, Engagement and Culture. So welcome, Alisha.
Hi there.
Secondly, we're joined by Elyssa Figuera, who is a Product and Analytics Manager at Tesco. Welcome, Elyssa.
Hello, thank you.
And last but not least, we're joined by Sadie, who is a Lead Optimisation Manager. Welcome, Sadie.
Hi, everyone.
Fantastic. So look, a good place to start, I think, in any podcast is just to get a bit of a flavour of the journey that our various guests have been on. So Alisha, we'll come to you first on this one. Why don't you tell us a bit about your journey into technology? How did you get into your current role? And ultimately, what attracted you to Tesco?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I like to tell people I kind of snuck under the radar to get into technology. So I, once upon a time, was a cybersecurity recruiter. So I'd left uni and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I did a bit of temping and fell into recruitment, and then fell into cybersecurity recruitment. And I just thought it was awesome. I was talking to people who were telling me how they'd hacked a company through their printer in Canary Wharf. Wow. And I had no idea how it was going to happen, but I just knew I wanted in. And more I'd be engrossed in these conversations with people, and they would tell me, you're the only blocker to getting in. You don't have to have expertise in maths. You don't have to have a deep tech background. There's lots of different spaces that need lots of diverse skills to come into this space for cybersecurity. So I kind of did my rounds in helping different recruitment agencies build cyber hubs. So recruiting in their cyber teams. Mm-hmm. And someone I knew from the agency background worked at Tesco, found out that Tesco were building their entire cybersecurity team in-house, which was completely unheard of at the time, but also even more unusual for a retailer to be doing. So it piqued my interest, and they reached out to me and said, hey, we're really dedicating ourselves to this space and we'd really like a dedicated cybersecurity recruiter. Would you come on site and see what we're doing? And everything from the team to how they interacted with each other, the scale and the complexity of their challenges, it all fascinated me. So I joined them under the cheeky premise that I would be trying to get into the team in 12 to 18 months. So I would be rapidly trying to recruit all of their roles so that at some point I could in fact be one of them. And about 10 months in, there was a vacancy for the security awareness team. And the head of tech risk at the time, I approached him and said, hey, could I do a secondment? I think I might be pretty decent at this kind of role. And he went, no. And obviously my dream was crushed. And he just went, just send me your CV. Let's take it perm. And then at 11 months, I had my perm offer and I got to move across, and I got to start my journey in security awareness, which at the time was a really small team of 2. And we got to kind of understand, what does that mean? And how do we start focusing on human risk within cybersecurity? Because there was so much within technology that focused on fixing human problems with tech solutions. And we were the first team of 2 at the time, or a little bit bigger now, to be able to look at it from an entirely human-centric approach. And we've been able to grow and develop and move away from, let's launch training that everyone knows is just here for compliance, to let's analyze behaviors. Let's use data. Let's be really data driven in the decisions we make. And let's put people at the core of their own learning. Let's help them. Let's empower them. Let's not hit them with a stick when they do something wrong. Let's assume we didn't train them properly. And it's fantastic. And I think so much of that is a reflection on the Tesco culture. They're so different. They're so prepared to be leading in what they're doing, innovative where necessary. And really, they put their colleagues and their customers at the core of everything they're doing. And as soon as I walked on site as a recruiter, I knew it was very different to any other organization I'd recruited for. And they kind of won me over from there.
Wow, I absolutely love that. I think, one of the topics that comes up frequently on the podcast is around the only barrier to entry is yourself and taking that proactive approach. I feel like you took it to the next level, infiltrating via a different role, building the team, building out your team of potential mentors, and then moving into it. So no, I absolutely love that, and I'm really excited to delve more into your approach to that kind of people-centric focused approach to security. So thank you so much, Elyssa. Elyssa, we will come to you next. If you could talk us through, again, your journey into tech and what attracted you to Tesco.
Yeah, so actually my sister was working at Tesco at the time that I applied. She actually left by the time I got a place. I came to Tesco straight out of university. I applied to a graduate scheme, which was a commercial merchandising scheme, buying and merchandising. And I didn't know anything about buying or merchandising, but I knew numbers and I knew I liked numbers. And my sister was a buyer and she said, oh, there's these like mathsy people in the team. That's the sort of thing you could do. And so I thought, well, might as well apply. And I managed to join this scheme. That was in, I don't even remember what year, 2013, I think. And it was a 2-year scheme and you rotated around different roles. Mm-hmm. And one of those roles I got moved into was online as a product manager. And I will admit, I did not like that role. Product management is not for me, and some people love it, and I very much didn't like it, but it did allow me to kind of see product analytics because I was working with the analytics team for one of the developments we were doing, and actually under the hood, so I had to help out on like finding out how to implement the analytics tracking. And I thought, this I understand. Now this sort of stuff I can get my teeth into. And so when there was an opportunity to, I then used that as my next rotation and moved into analytics, and I literally never left. And that was in 2015. So I've been in analytics for how many years that is, 9-ish years. Yeah, I love it. And I haven't looked back since joining. Analytics has moved. I've moved around within analytics. So the job's never dull because I've worked on so many different areas and I've managed teams and I've been an individual contributor. So I've had a real variety of roles within analytics and in a variety of products. So kind of behavioral analytics, so front end trading analytics, but also looking at colleague apps and now looking at personalisation, discovery, but also loss prevention on tills. So it's a real variety. Yeah, I just love the atmosphere. A bit like Alisha said, kind of the second you walk in, everyone's friendly, everyone goes above and beyond. Everyone's happy to help. They don't mind being interrupted with what they're doing to help you out. So I really enjoy the atmosphere and no intention to move on unless they make me. So I'm here for a while.
Fantastic. And look, great to hear, different perspectives, different routes in, perhaps a more traditional route of kind of university through a grad scheme. So it's great to get those different perspectives on the call today. And also, I think what I'm really intrigued by, what I'm really interested to find out a bit more about, what kind of kept you at Tesco's for the last 11 years, which I'm sure we're going to get into as we move through today's podcast, which is awesome. So Sadie, how about yourself?
So I haven't been at Tesco for as long as the other two. I've been here for about 3, going on to 3 years. And I feel like similarities with the other two, essentially, I just kind of fell into technology after university. I think like many graduates, I was really unsure about what I actually wanted to do next. And I kind of broke down like my degree of what did I enjoy about it. So I studied psychology at undergrad and then I did sports and exercise psychology as my postgrad. So I kind of broke down essentially what did I like about it. And the part that I really liked was the research side, like running experiments, really trying to understand essentially like the way that we behave, and just kind of did a bit of a Google search. I just kind of put like digital experimentation, technology. I can't even really remember. And I don't actually really remember applying for a lot of these jobs, but I suddenly was getting telephone interviews for what was back then called CRO, which was conversion rate optimization. And over time, it's like an industry that's really matured into just being called experimentation. And essentially my role is kind of managing those product experiments that we do. So I just fell into it. I've been in the industry now for 8 years, like I said, nearly 3 years at Tesco, just trying to make sure that we're kind of continuously improving our products for our customers, understanding and gaining that insight in a way that essentially allows us to kind of eliminate any guesswork and actually be able to measure the impact and performance that we're having on our like customers, which is really, really good. I think though, although I kind of fell into it, I do think the factors that kind of draw people initially to work in technology are kind of those that have made me want to stay in the industry. So I think the opportunity to work in like a very fast-paced environment, and I'm not going to say anything new here. I know everyone probably thinks exactly the same when it comes to technology, but it's always like changing. It's always so innovative, like solving customer and product problems, and then being able to really kind of create those impactful solutions that for us at Tesco obviously go out to millions of customers is just so fascinating to me. So yeah, pre-Tesco, I worked agency side. If I'm being completely honest, my move to Tesco was purely strategic for my career. And once I arrived, I really saw the appeal. So I was so confused why people like stay for so long when they like stay here for 10 years plus. But I think now that I've been here for 3 years, I do really understand why. And I think as a department, we're so committed to kind of providing that best digital experience for our customers. I can like really understand us embodying essentially all of those factors that initially attract people to tech in the first place.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sadie. And look, great to hear, that clear passion for what you do, it just runs through everything you say there. So yeah, really excited to delve more into that and of course, unpack more of the kind of culture of Tesco's and what it is that keeps people within the business for so long. So Sadie, we are going to stick with you for our first question. So one thing you didn't kind of mention there in your intro is you have a background in sports and exercise psychology. How does this influence your approach to experimentation? And what is it that makes Tesco's experimentation program stand out? How has it really helped to shape the company's growth and innovation?
Yeah, I did my postgrad in sports and exercise psychology. I did that at Loughborough University. So possibly the best place to do that if you are a sports nerd like I am. And I'd say it's been beneficial in my role for kind of two ways. So from the perspective of just being able to do my job. So like I said, my job was essentially running what we call A/B tests across product teams. And it allows us to gather insights on how customers are behaving for new products that we are even launching or products that we are optimizing. It provides a very kind of like risk-averse way of allowing us to do that, because essentially we can launch it, and then if we find that it's not performing as well as we thought for our customers, we can roll back on it very quickly. So fascinating job. And to be honest, like from just the perspective of being able to do my job, there were so many aspects of my degree that obviously aligned with digital experimentation, from understanding kind of the scientific methodology around running experiments in the first place and like applying that to a digital landscape, knowing about research techniques that kind of ensure that you're limiting kind of biases essentially that we may have, or just like understanding how our brains essentially work in like a consumer environment. Really beneficial. Although I do know that there are a lot of people in the experimentation industry who even never went to university, didn't do psychology, really kind of isn't necessary to actually get into a role. I think the actual sports and exercise psychology part though is like really been important for more of like a growth mindset, resilience, and like ability essentially to like analyze my own performance like critically. I think those skills have been great, like that I can kind of directly apply them not only to like my own performance, but also the way that I manage the programs, like teams, and just like allowed me essentially to be more adaptable to environments, similar to, a tennis player on a tennis court. Like momentum is so important, but also that ability to kind of disrupt that momentum and like kind of change and adapt to, the way that your other players is, something that's like, kind of like taken on in my role at the moment. So I think kind of two ways that it's really benefited me. I think Tesco's experimentation program is very similar to others in terms of like, it takes a data-driven approach. So we work with our product analytics teams to understand how customers are behaving. We have research teams that allow us to, understand what they want, etc. And there's obviously a collaboration across like teams. But I think where it stands out is the way that kind of every product team essentially embodies that culture of experimentation. So it's so easy for us to kind of, quickly identify what works and what doesn't work for our customers, like innovate and drive growth by like doing quick iterations and stuff. So I think I mentioned it earlier, like an unsung benefit of experimentation is the ability to like eliminate that guesswork. And I guess essentially like what's so good about it is that we are letting our customers on a daily basis essentially tell us like what they like and dislike about our product. And I think that's kind of really significantly enhanced customer experience and kind of streamlined our operation. So yeah, I'd probably say like that's the main thing that is different. And it sounds so basic, but you'd be surprised how many companies there are out there who have experimentation programs, but they're not like truly kind of championed by everyone in the product teams.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't sound basic at all. I think you quite comprehensively explained something in a really simple and clear way. That's actually quite a complex process, and I couldn't agree more. Having a growth program and doing growth right is a totally different thing. Elyssa, this is actually a really nice segue that Sadie's kind of set us up with there, because one of the things she was just touching on was really understanding the user feedback, understanding how users utilize a product, and then using that information to then experiment in different ways. So as a product analytics manager, you work really closely with data to improve customer experiences. Could you just explain how you identify these opportunities and what the process looks like from a data analysis to product improvement flow?
Yes, and you'll no problem. You'll also notice that I will mention experimentation because we obviously work quite closely. Sadie and I are in the same wider team. So yeah, within analytics, and especially at Tesco, we have access to so much data from different types of sources. So we have our behavioral data, how customers are interacting with our websites, our apps. We have things like qualitative data from our research teams, and things like our ease of use score when you're using the till, like how did you find your shop today? You can give it a smiley face rating. We also have our transactional data, so kind of what customers were buying, and that will influence how they shop with us. So we have all those different sources, and we can blend those together to get a real story, a real picture of how customers are interacting with us as Tesco, as a brand, with the different elements of Tesco. So whether that be shopping online or shopping in store, and whether it could be finding search results. Are they finding their search results useful? Are they getting annoyed by interruptions or interventions on the self-checkout? Everyone knows there's something unexpected in your bagging area comment. Well, we track those, and we can then see how that might impact a customer's transaction time, or maybe even their likelihood to return to us. They might get those so often they might not return. We might lose customers from having too many interventions. And we also have we could also see where in their digital journey, what is it in their digital journey that might cause them to shop more or less with us? Are there any irritants or any common themes that are cropping up that might cause them to shop less with us? And sometimes we can spot those by looking at trends of data and seeing if there's any changes in behavior over time. Sometimes we do have customer feedback methods, and sometimes our customers actually just tell us that something's annoying them. And you'll know it probably from personal experience, you tend to feedback more when you're annoyed than when you're happy. So we have quite a vast range of feedback around lots of different irritants and flaws or bugs. And sometimes we can use that to immediately try and fix something. And my favorite bit of analytics is having no guidelines, no guidance, and being able to go freely go and not snoop is the wrong word, freely go and search through data and look for a story, hunt down a story, find something, an opportunity to improve, find something that's annoying people that they haven't verbally told you about, and find a story we didn't expect to find. Like I said, that's the most fun bit, getting the freedom to go and look for an opportunity to improve for our customers. Having found that opportunity, now we set clear objectives and goals with our product teams. We know what the goal is of that product, and we know how we'd like to measure our success. So we then have this hopefully large list of initiatives, large list of hypotheses that we'd like to test. Cue Sadie, where we can then see whether the data has told us that something is irritating customers. We've come up with an idea that may fix that, and we can then go and test to see whether that has hopefully had a successful experiment to improve our customer experience or improve the metrics we're trying to move. And I mean, most of our metrics are make something easier for customers, and then hopefully we have happy customers, hopefully they return. So yeah, that's kind of how we go from my fun bit, doing the investigative analytics, through to actually improving a product for our customers.
Fantastic. And yeah, really good to get the other side of the coin, that detective work that you're doing to really identify those opportunities, and then seeing that joined up thinking through to the work that Sadie does. So no, thank you so much, Elyssa. Alisha, we're going to come to you next, and we're going to kind of focus on, your role as head of security engagement and culture. What are some of the biggest challenges you've faced in your career? And what advice would you give to those aspiring to reach a similar level?
It's a really good question because I think it's actually quite easy to just in your brain go through all the different challenges you've come across, and then you start to pick out the trends. And I think I could probably summarize the first challenge that I had. I could probably summarize them quite succinctly. Was I joined 7 odd years ago as a security awareness manager. And it was very much about compliance training and scale it, do some e-learning, vomit some information onto people and hope it sticks. And there was no career path. And in Tesco technology, there are job families. So every skill set has a family associated with their skills and a very clear individual contributor or management route into climbing the corporate ladder. And I had to accept that I wasn't a cyber analyst and I wasn't a cybersecurity engineer. So there was no career path for me. And I think that can be quite intimidating when you're somebody who is ambitious and wants to know where you're going to go. And that then meant that there really wasn't at that initial stage an appetite for a head of my world, which is now security engagement and culture, or there wasn't a principal opportunity to get to an individual contributor. So the challenge was convincing people that there was a future in this space and that there was a need for it, and using a lot of what Elyssa and Sadie had talked about, actually going from where's the story? What's the thing here that our colleagues aren't talking about, but actually is a blinding gap in the stuff that we're doing? Because if we've got all these different technology solutions and all these different people focusing on all our different endpoints across the estate, we have anywhere between 300 and 400,000 colleagues, and we have 2 people today to help secure them and help empower them. So let's go and find out how empowered do they feel and where do they need more from us? And actually, let's start looking into some behavioral science here and understanding the socio-technical element. Why do people do what they do with technology? And then how do we use that data to help us empower them in the right ways? Maybe one-off training every now and then isn't the right way to do it. Maybe they really need education and nudges and reminders as often as we can give them, and on-the-job training and stuff like that. Maybe we're the problem, and it isn't end users don't know how to be our best line of defense. It's that we're not empowering them to be the best line of defense. And it's finding that story and then designing ourselves a bit of a hypothesis and then trying it and testing it and seeing if that behavior reduces some of the risk that we see to the business because of the actions our colleagues are taking. And it was really experimental and it was really wild and it was really fun and it was exciting because no one in the industry was doing it. So it was exciting because it was new and it was innovative. It was daunting because I had no walls to bounce off. I had nobody that I could go and talk to and say, what are you doing here? So I happily leached off everyone else in tech. And I just looked at what they were doing. And I thought, well, if you're doing that and I applied that to my space, that could work. And if you're doing that over there and I started doing some of that for a colleague rather than an external customer, that could work. And it was kind of shaping my own future and convincing my leadership team along the way that there was value endlessly, improving it with metrics and not just having great conversations about where I thought there was value, but being able to prove and measure that value as I went. So that was quite a daunting challenge in the beginning that I was really fortunate with my leadership team. They were always so helpful and really clear and concise and very direct about what they wanted. And when you have someone that direct about their needs, it's very difficult to not deliver against those needs. So being able to have that transparency and that allyship where they wanted to see me be successful was really how I was able to overcome some of that challenge. But it was daunting, and I still don't today, maybe in the near future, have a career framework for my team, but I can see why it's daunting for some. And I like to use myself as an example of it shouldn't be daunting because there was no vision for any of this when I started. And now we're here. Imagine where we'll be in 5 years' time. You could create that vision. And I like that element of flexibility, whereas I think some people like that really rigid, here's a career framework, I'm going to do this and I'm going to get to there. I quite like operating in the gray zones. And I didn't realize that until I was thrown into it. And then I think a lot of the other challenges could probably be summarized in 2 ways. One is negative self-talk. I think as someone who had a non-tech background, who was in a heavily male-dominated environment, who was a lot younger than a lot of the leadership team, for example, you get imposter syndrome, but you also don't feel that you can talk about it because you've got a point to prove and a chip on your shoulder. You have to prove you're here. You're not a token. You're adding value. You have to say something when you're now at this table. And I remember I was going through my CISP training, which is it's one of the most difficult cybersecurity qualifications to get. And it's for a certified information systems security professional. And I remember the day before the exam, it is 6 days of like boot camp training. You think of nothing else. You live and breathe cybersecurity. And I got to the day before the exam, which was a Saturday, which I found cruel and unusual as punishment, but hey. And I messaged my boss, our security and capability director, and I'm not doing this exam. I will not pass it. I can't do it. Everyone here is techies. They come from deeply technical backgrounds. Their current roles are technical, and all of them are scared of this exam. There is no way I'm going to be successful. And he gave me a bit of tough love, and he reminded me that everyone would have said a recruiter wouldn't have been successful in the way that I developed the role today, but I had. And that the worst that would happen was I took it and I failed, and I knew where my weaknesses were, and I could try again. And I took it and I passed. And I remember messaging him and being like, "Oh my God, like I can't believe it." And he went, What was your challenge really? What made you sit it?" And I realized that he'd helped me identify it was a crisis of confidence rather than a crisis in lack of knowledge. And that's a continuous challenge that I have to sort of self-address. And I'm much more open about addressing it with others now. I don't feel that because I'm the youngest and at the time was the only female in the leadership team, I couldn't talk to anyone. Actually, by talking about it more, I found that they were so willing to help. And I wasn't that different. A lot of that self-talk they have, but they applied it in different ways and they overcame it in different ways. And I think that was really, really clear when in the very beginning of my role, I could not explain to you, I cannot emphasize enough how uncomfortable I was being uncomfortable. I had gone from being an expert in cybersecurity recruitment, nailing every role that I got, everybody that I spoke to as clients, I knew what they wanted, I knew which candidates would fit exactly within their teams. And I went into this space in technology as a manager in cybersecurity with no idea what I was doing. And I'd done a bit of training here and there, and I was absolutely terrified. And one of my very, very good friends now, he heads up our security operations and testing, just got me in the kitchenette and said, "Just get comfortable being uncomfortable." And I remember thinking, that's the worst advice I've ever been given in my life. This is the worst experience. I do not like it. And no, I refuse to get comfortable with this. And then very quickly, I say very quickly, in the grand scheme of things, it felt like my entire life, but it was really like 3 months. Something just clicked. And I started walking out of meeting rooms knowing exactly what I needed to do to fix a problem and exactly what was expected of me. And I remember thinking at the time, oh, wow, well, now I'm comfortable. What's next? Where do I find the next thing that's going to help me grow? I've got to be uncomfortable to find it. And I think that's a really big challenge, that just whenever you're uncomfortable, you have to talk to yourself and get yourself through it again, because no one really likes being uncomfortable. And when people say get comfortable being uncomfortable, what I think they really mean is build your resilience, love this space, enjoy the journey. No one likes it, but nobody likes a lot of the things that better themselves. Enjoy the outcome and enjoy the route that gets you there. But yeah, I think that was probably one of the biggest challenges that I still face today, to be honest with you. And off the back of that, I think the advice that I would give to anyone else looking in a similar space or in a well-defined career framework or really clear vision on how they would progress within their own roles, I think you have to constantly take charge of defining who you are and what you're capable of. Often the world I work in can be seen as the fluffy side of tech. So even I believed that I couldn't pass a technical certification. And when I went through it, I realized I didn't want to be defined that way. And I didn't want to fit in their box. I didn't want to fit in the typical, she's a non-techie and will always be a non-techie box. I wanted to figure out how to break the mold. And I owned how I defined myself. And I think that's really empowering and really important to remember, especially when you've got a lot of self-talk going on. You have to make sure you're talking positively to yourself and then put in the work to get where you're going and never stop learning. Assume you can learn something from everyone. And in that, find your people. Find the ones who want to see you grow. They'll challenge you to be better. And they'll remind you of your successes on the days where things get really, really hard.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Alisha. Some great advice there. Really good advice. I really like how you turned that initial challenge into an opportunity. You looked at it and said, okay, there's not this definition here. This is an opportunity for me to create the definition, right? To define this. And I think, that really, that was a thread that was, right through all of your explanations there. And I think nobody likes being uncomfortable, but at the same time, if you're always comfortable, then, you're probably just kind of moving along at a, pretty steady pace. And if you're not moving forward, then, in a lot of senses, you can be moving backwards. So I think, as you say, embracing that uncomfortable move is what allows you to progress and what allows you to grow. And I think one thing I wanted to highlight in there, which I think really speaks to the culture within Tesco, is, we all get imposter syndrome, and for sure, sometimes it can feel like an admission of weakness or an admission that, you're perhaps not strong enough to do something. But the fact that you could have that conversation and the response was very supportive and very much, you can absolutely do this, I think shows that there is a culture within the business that encourages these open dialogues, and doesn't want someone to just kind of suffer in silence and kind of get on with things, which is awesome. So no, thank you so much for sharing, Alisha. Fantastic. We're going to stick on a similar theme for the next question, and this is going to go to everyone. So we'll come to you first with it, Sadie. How does Tesco support your career progression, your professional development, as well as, for other members of your particular team?
No, so I think the main thing I'd say for me is like the learning resources that Tesco provides for us. So whether it's either kind of like through, we have like an internal like purpose-built academy that we can like reference, and like we were saying, there's career frameworks as well where we can actually understand like where our gaps in knowledge or skills actually sit. We can kind of go to that academy and essentially like find training resources or materials that we can use to try and like plug those gaps, I guess. Or we have like third-party solutions as well that we can choose from. We just have access to so much kind of online resources, like face-to-face courses, and can really kind of use those learning opportunities, I guess, to like support our career growth. So I think that's been really beneficial, especially like in the last 3 years of Tesco, of like actually being able to be empowered essentially to like take that time out of my day-to-day job and actually be able to invest it a little bit in myself. For example, in our teams and in quite a lot of the teams at Tesco, we have our monthly Kaizen day. So I'm not sure if you're aware of like the concept of Kaizen. It is around like making small improvements every single day, which are essentially going to accumulate to a much bigger difference or change. I think we probably do embody it on a day-to-day basis, but we have like every month, like on a Friday, we'll have a whole day where we can just put our out of office on. We'll meet in the morning, kind of discuss as a team, like, what we're going to be focusing on. People can pair up together if they're going to be focusing on different things. And really, it's just a day for us to kind of, support our career progression or like whatever we're kind of passionate about. There's no kind of limitations to what we can have a look at. Also, like on Monday, I had like a face-to-face half-day course around how to create a winning team as part of like a management course that I'm doing. So I think there's just so many opportunities that essentially we can grab that are either going to improve like our technical skills, leadership and value skills, invest time in like what we feel passionate about. So women in technology is something that I'm really passionate about. I can like spend time doing that. For me, like that's kind of the main thing. It's just like how many learning resources we have, and the fact that we're actually provided with the time and opportunities to actually, go ahead and try and improve and invest in ourselves.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, couldn't agree more. The variation is so important. Everyone learns in different ways. Everyone wants to approach learning in different ways, right? So having that variance that suits different people is absolutely crucial, particularly in a business the size of Tesco. And I particularly love the Kaizen Day. If you ask anyone at Hack a Job, they're probably sick to death of me talking about marginal gains. So having an entire day devoted to marginal gains is music to my ears for sure.
Oh, I've taken that concept now in life. It's like my daily mantra is that if I can just improve myself by like, I say 1%, but realistically 1% each day is probably unrealistic. But yeah, it's definitely like a personal mantra that I always do, just in general, like always trying to improve, optimize yourself, set my own personal hypotheses and go out there and see what the outcomes are. So yeah, it's a concept that I love as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Elyssa, anything you would add to that? Anything perhaps different in terms of your role and the approach to learning, development, progression?
Yeah, I think, and hopefully it's kind of a given in a lot of teams, a lot of companies, but just even having regular touch points with your managers around your personal development plan, around your career development, where you want to get to. And I hate the whole, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? But if you more to the point, if there is a career progression, if you're in a job family and you can see where you'd like to get to, or if it's outside of that job family, being really open and talking to your manager and talking to your peers about where you would like to get to, whether that is like an upwards move, a sideways move, diagonal, whatever it looks like, being very clear with yourself and the people you work with about where you're trying to get to. And we have regular updates, we have regular performance reviews, and the one thing that Tesco is really driving and really pushing for, and I think I'm quite a good advocate of this because I try really hard, is giving regular feedback. So ideally in the moment feedback, but not everyone's comfortable giving that or receiving that. But rather than just waiting till the end of the year or halfway through the year when you're about to have a performance review and saying, oh, everyone, how has it been working with me? But providing that feedback and asking for that feedback throughout the year, whether it's just after completing a project or after just what you feel like you've led a meeting and maybe it went really well, maybe it didn't go so well. Just trying to get that feedback regularly helps you identify your opportunities for growth, and also it helps you maybe appreciate where you're actually really good. So like Alisha was saying, it might be all she can focus on is where the gaps are, but seeing someone tell you, no, you know what, you've got to where you are from a recruitment background, which a lot of people wouldn't have thought was possible. So other people can highlight the benefits, highlight what you're really good at, and they can also highlight where there are some opportunities, so you can focus on those without being completely bogged down and everything's wrong and everything's awful. And then, going on to what Sadie was saying, once you've identified those gaps, there are so many opportunities to better yourself, to improve both technical and leadership skills at Tesco. So we're all doing the management course at the moment around making your team even more successful and trying to put that in practice within your team. And a lot of that is around regular feedback and career development discussions and, making people aware of where those resources are.
Great. And I think that's a really good point. It's all well and good having the resources, having the channels, having the opportunities to learn. But as you say, sometimes people need help at that initial stage of what should I be learning, or, where should I be developing, or even just having that open discussion around, where do your passions lie and where do you want to progress? So I think that's, often an overlooked part of the career progression journey. So no, thank you so much. And Alisha, over to you. Any nuances that you'd like to highlight?
I mean, obviously, as someone who sits in a learning field, I'm a huge advocate for what Sadie and Elyssa just said, and I agree with them completely. I think there's just endless variety of learning opportunities for us, and I think the resources are great. The opportunities to have mentors or coaches is phenomenal. There's often development programs that are run to support people. I think my favorite thing is social learning. We're really good at developing communities and having folks like women in tech, and then sharing knowledge and learning together and growing together, which I think is just fantastic. And I think, to Sadie's point, I think you really underestimate the value of getting together as a team to learn and tackle a challenge. And I am a massive geek. I was going to say a bit of a geek. That would have been a straight up lie. But I'm a massive geek and I love reading. And I said to my team, hey, let's try to stay ahead of the curve here. Let's introduce On the Same Page, which is on the last Friday of every month. Let's do a book club. And On the Same Page meant we were all reading the same book and we were all talking about, it could be totally out of our field, but how could we apply some of that within our field? And there was a really busy time and people sort of started dropping off and they couldn't attend. So we did away with it. And in some of my recent sort of culture check-ins that I run monthly with the team, somebody or several people, I think somebody started this and sent it around to everyone to then emphasize the point, just went, bring back On the Same Page. We loved it. It was a great chance to learn together, a great chance to kind of push the boat out and learn from spaces that we wouldn't ordinarily get to learn from. And I think that's not to be underestimated. And it speaks a lot to Tesco's culture that that's a really comfortable thing that people fall into doing, learning together.
Awesome. And I think, again, it speaks to the empowerment that Tesco gives to employees, the fact that you could set that up yourself. You could take that different approach. It's not a rigid, this is how we learn. These are the approaches that we take. It's empowering leaders like yourself to work with your team to understand what they need or what they're going to get benefit from, and kind of run with it, which is awesome. So Sadie, we're going to come to you with the next question. How do you measure the benefits of your experimentation work with projects such as Tesco's Unpack?
Yeah, so I will answer that question, but before, I'd like to say I do want to join the book club. So please send me an invite to the book club first.
Everyone's welcome.
Yeah, I want to join the book club. So Unpacked is such an exciting project. I think it generally is like getting better and better every year for our customers. It's essentially our version of like Spotify Unwrapped, where Tesco customers can gain insights into value that they get from their club card, their shopping habits, and we kind of launch it like every year in January. And honestly, it is one of my most favorite products that I've worked on at Tesco so far. So I think I mentioned earlier, like experimentation is all rooted in measurement and eliminating guesswork to understand the value of a new or optimized product. That can, like, the benefit that it can have for our customers and a business. And I think with A/B test projects such as this, like, sadly, we do have to hold back some of our customers from being able to see a new or optimized product. But it allows us to really kind of understand or measure kind of key metrics and understand like what the customer's perception towards Club Card is. Like, we can actually measure that and quantify, have we actually had a positive impact in the way that they perceive the value that they get from us in a short term, but also a long term basis as well. So over the years, we've kind of seen our customers love the product. We're currently looking to do it every single year, hopefully optimize it, improve by having more data points, allowing to kind of gain better insights to what our customers are doing. And also as well, just trying to open it up to as many customers as possible. So last year I was sadly in the control group for it, which is really, really sad considering I worked on it for a whole year and I didn't even get to see my own shopping habits. So this year, open it up to more customers and see kind of the benefits that they can get from that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sadie. And again, really great segue into my next question, which is for Elyssa, which is really around the personalization side of things. And I think obviously those A/B tests and those different experiments you're running are really what then funnel into the ability to personalize the experience for different users. So Elyssa, how does Tesco leverage personalization to enhance customer experiences on the website?
Yeah, so thinking about how we're using personalization can come across in loads of different forms. So like Sadie said in Unpacked, it can be just talking about your shopping behavior. And my favorite bit, and I think everyone's favorite bit, is finding out what your ideal meal deal combo is, your most regular meal deal combo, and then finding out that you might just be the only person in the UK with that combination, which is always fun to know. So I think personalization can take many forms. So it could be greeting you by name on an email, something as simple as that, or when you land on the site saying, "Hi, Elyssa, kind of welcome back." But it also can be showing you when you search on site, showing you products based on what you've searched or purchased before. So that for me, when I search milk, I don't expect to see cow's milk at the top. I expect to see dairy alternatives at the top because I don't buy cow's milk. So it's really interesting and it makes my life a lot simpler that I don't have to then scroll through what for me are irrelevant products. But we also want to make personalization feel seamless and right without it really being obvious. So actually, I do search milk and it brings back the favorites, the things I've purchased before. My favorites, my usuals get pushed to the top. But I don't want to lose that ability to add inspiration to my shop, so it's not completely masking everything else, but it's just allowing my shopping behavior and my shopping habits to be a bit more seamless, a bit more smooth and simple, and making the customer experience easier. And by personalizing the customer's experience, both but also through how we communicate with them, what products we recommend, like I said, which order we list products out to them, and also personalizing even sponsored products. So where we do have sponsored products on site, they're not just the same for everyone. They're still relevant to you, more relevant to you. We just make their experience, well, like I said, more relevant, more simple, and it's easier to shop with us. And it hopefully saves them time, and it inspires them. It still gives them the opportunity to inspire them with relevant but new products, so they're not stuck in a rut. We know that customers feel stuck in a rut sometimes. And we're trying to grow our reach of personalization. Like Sadie said, the Unpacked is only to a certain number of customers. Some people have to be held back, but we're trying to expand the reach of all these things so that we need to have a certain amount of history about how I've shopped before to be able to tell me what my shopping habits are and show me relevant products. But we're trying to make that a bit easier. So maybe we need to know less about you. Maybe you don't need to be a regular shopper. Maybe we just need to have seen you before. And yeah, for now, we've seen some really positive improvements on those customer metrics about those ease of shopping habits and ease of shopping metrics by adding personalization on things like recommendations, on things like search and things like browse.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much. And yeah, didn't realize about the favorite meal deal analysis that could be conducted. I definitely need to go and search that out if I'm part of the right control group and find that out. So no, thank you so much. Alisha, one thing you've kind of mentioned a few times during today's podcast is the approach to kind of education around security. And maybe it's not just a one-off training session here and there. So how do you approach internal education to ensure that all colleagues at Tesco are aware and knowledgeable about cybersecurity practices?
I'm a big advocate for it. So if I hadn't mentioned it already, I'd be surprised. I just think Tesco as a culture and that growth mindset that they push has bled into what we do within cybersecurity. We acknowledge that our people are our best line of defense, and to empower them to do that well, we have education and learning curriculums to support them, on-the-job training, regular awareness campaigns, communities of champions to learn and grow together. And we've even put a behavioral science spin to it to understand, why do people interact with technology the way that they do? You wouldn't walk away from your house without locking your door. Why would you walk away from your laptop without locking that? and understanding all of the neuroscience that comes along to that with that, and then the learning science that helps you overcome that, and everything that we can to understand how do we change or build really sustainable, secure behaviors to empower our colleagues. And it is a different approach to the, hey, we're going to train you every now and then, and we hope that in 9 months' time, if you hit a challenge and something suspicious comes into your inbox, you remember that training from 9 months ago. We're realizing we're treating people as people, and we're realizing there's better ways to support them, and we're putting ourselves in the shoes of the best line of defense, and we're challenging ourselves to do better.
Fantastic. Yeah, couldn't agree more. That more holistic approach to learning is absolutely the way to move forward if you want to make a real difference. Elyssa, we'll come to you. We've got a couple of questions here to round things out. We'll come to you with both of them for now. So initially, could you give us your thoughts on the importance of having more women in tech roles, and what steps Tesco's has taken to promote gender diversity in its technical teams?
Yeah, so actually, I was actually interesting because a few years ago, one of my colleagues pointed out to me. She was like, "Don't you think it's weird that we need two women in the team?" And I honestly hadn't even noticed. So I think it's more about, for me, the atmosphere. But yeah, in terms of importance of having women in the team, just you get design bias, right? We see things like, pockets on jeans are small, mobile phones are massive, and so I think having a diverse group of colleagues doesn't have to be female and male. It needs to be all across different cultures and religions and everything, because then you see we build what we like, we build what's useful. We believe we know our customers, but there's always an internal bias that we have on what we are building. And I think by having more women, what we're building and the way that we improve our products will hopefully better reflect at least in this case, the gender split in what we're providing. And if you think about things like facial recognition, when it was trained in all these instances, it tends to be really good at identifying white men and not so great for women or people with ethnic backgrounds. So yeah, I think it's really important from a design perspective and when we are developing products. And the second part around what Tesco are doing to promote gender diversity, I think it's hard when we're recruiting. It's hard if our pool of candidates isn't that diverse. So it's more around getting in early and doing outreach programs. So there were some teams that have actually set up individually and doing things like code schools to get kind of girls interested in technology early. And it's those sort of programs. And we partner with the Prince's Trust in terms of just trying to get people from different backgrounds into Tesco in general, but it still applies to technology as well. So I think Tesco as a whole is doing a lot to try and increase the diversity of its colleagues and try and better reflect the community, better reflect the world we live in.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. And great to hear that taking that grassroots approach, encouraging more women into technology at an earlier stage. And as you say, people from all sorts of different backgrounds. But also, the route that you've taken for the business, Alisha, as well, I think is really important to recognize, being open to people cross-training and moving across from different industries, because there is a dearth of women within technology in general. So if businesses aren't open to different approaches, grassroots approaches, cross-training, then we'll all spend all day talking about it and no one will actually be solving the problem. So it's fantastic to hear that Tesco's are really taking these approaches to solve those problems. Sadie, same question to you. Could you share your thoughts on the importance of having women within tech roles and the kind of steps that Tesco's are taking to improve in this area?
Yeah, so I possibly think this is my favorite thing about Tesco is our women in tech community. So I've been part of the steering committee for the women in tech community that we have for the last couple of years now. And the kind of part that I play in it is really kind of looking to improve the marketing and comms materials that we share. So that education, like sharing people's like inspirational stories. For example, these two women are definitely going to get a message from me later saying, come to our Empower Her series that we do on a monthly basis. And I think I could honestly go on for the whole podcast over like how important having more women in tech roles is. But for me, similar to what's already been said, diverse perspectives and role models as well. Role models and mentors are so important. I think just increasing the number of women in tech, creating those role models that like for the next generation, encouraging more women to pursue careers is kind of what I'm hoping is going to have like a bit of a ripple effect. And, you know, at Tesco, we have our community. It sits under our D&I initiative. We focus on hosting those events, panels, workshops to support women, advocate and advance women in technical roles as well. And really just kind of like not only within the company, but like kind of thinking like at their, you know, careers and beyond. I think the commitment that we have as a business to actually create these networks and support these underrepresented groups has like really allowed a more inclusive culture where everyone can succeed. And honestly, it's like one of the things that I get the most kind of like joy and like pride from on my daily basis is like the women in tech community that we have. So yeah, I would definitely talk about it for hours, but I'd say, yeah, that's kind of the main thing for us is really like having that community, that space for inclusivity and for everyone to kind of be able to share their knowledge, thoughts, stories, and yeah, just feel kind of supported is so important.
Fantastic. Yeah. And once again, I think really just speaks to the open culture at Tesco that really encourages these discussions, and couldn't agree more, you know, having those support networks, having those people who trod that path before, it's so important to be able to share those stories. Fantastic. Alisha, same question to you.
Yeah, I echo the ladies on this one. Diverse pool of thought is absolutely invaluable, and you can see it in so many different metrics. So we won't go into those, but I think from a cybersecurity and broader tech perspective, but specifically from cyber, if cyber criminals can be anyone from anywhere, we need to reflect that diversity so that we can come together to think about all the different ways to defend Tesco. And you can't do that with only one skill set, one gender, one ethnicity, one sexuality, one social background or religion type being represented in the designing of secure solutions. And I think Tesco are really facing into that challenge from where we recruit and trying to shape pools for future development to shifting our sourcing for different pools and understanding that transferable skills element, but never lowering our bar and making sure that we're maintaining quality. We're just shifting where we're looking for this level of quality. The internal communities like Women in Tech are just invaluable because let's be honest, great talent tends to know great talent. And if you are talking to a friend who's external to Tesco and they hear about all the great things Tesco are doing and suddenly there's a vacancy with their skill set available, you're probably going to refer them in. And I think that works in so many positive ways. And I think Tesco is really good at nurturing internal talent. I'm sure Elyssa and Sadie can attest to that. I definitely can. And I think that there's things like women's development programs and mentoring and coaching and sponsorship available where we can be really good at developing women and offering women growth opportunities in spaces where we're known to be a minority. And I'm really proud of the way Tesco doesn't shy away from providing that extra support to minorities, because it isn't tokenism or unfair bias, in my opinion. It's acknowledging there's a challenge in this space and facing into it and giving people the support they need to feel empowered to be the change that the industry needs.
Fantastic. And I think it almost takes us full circle back to your original point around, you know, the only barrier to entry sometimes is yourself. And I think, you know, the conversation we're just having right now, you know, for any women out there listening, maybe thinking about taking that opportunity in technology, Tesco certainly sounds like a fantastic place to try and start that journey. And I'd certainly encourage anyone listening in, you know, if you're interested, get in touch. We'll make sure in the description of the podcast, all the relevant links are in there, and take that proactive approach, because it really does sound like it's a very welcoming environment that's open to solving problems and open to finding different solutions to, you know, problems with perhaps diversity, which we see across the industry. It certainly sounds like Tesco's at the forefront of this. Fantastic. Sadie, we're going to come to you with our final question, which is around how do you see kind of industry tech trends aiding Tesco's growth, and what are you looking forward to? So looking ahead to the future, what are you excited about?
Okay, I'm going to swerve from the obvious one. I'm not even going to mention it. I think we all know what it is. And let someone else maybe say that. I think for definitely within like my industry, I think like what's going to aid Tesco growth is this omni-channel retailing. So I've kind of spoken about like digital experimentation. Obviously, we have our website, we have our app, but we have so many other digital touch points within our stores as well. We've got our screens, our tills, we've got our scan as you shop. I think there are so many that we are yet to experiment on, but also like, so therefore the ones that we're not experimenting on are obviously kind of missing out on that optimized or like kind of more seamless shopping experience like across all of those channels. I think the integration that we have between online and offline shopping experiences as well. So like how can we actually, you know, improve the offline online shopping experience, like people going into our stores or whatever it might be. I think that's going to be vital for us in the future. So it's a big challenge. I don't think many people actually do like kind of more in-store experimentation programs, but yeah, I mean, like we've said all podcasts, got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So that is the next challenge. I think that's where we're really going to kind of grow, improve it better for our customers, and yeah, I'm excited to tackle it head on, I guess.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Alisha, how about yourself?
Yeah, that's a hard answer to follow. I'm also going to avoid the obvious because why not? Um, I'm selfishly really looking forward to technology helping us to have threat intelligence led personalized training that is just in time to empower colleagues to make security simple. Because ultimately, all of our colleagues want to do right by our customers and our other colleagues. And the easier we can make that, or that my team can make that, the better.
Wow. Very succinct, very well put, very clear. Love it. And then final question to you, Elyssa, exact same question. What sort of trends? Are you going to avoid the obvious as well, or are you going to
Yeah, why not? No. We'll let everyone work that out for themselves and see where that takes us. But for me, one thing I'm really enjoying, and actually Alisha mentioned it earlier, is the fact that Tesco build a lot of our tools in-house. So building our own cybersecurity team, building our own Tesco till, and building our payment system. It's a combination of things. So one is the ability to build those things in-house. We have such great talent, and it's a real massive upfront cost, right? You have to start these things from scratch, and it's a huge investment decision for Tesco to trust their colleagues to be able to build the elements we need. And I think it's amazing. We do this in lots of different spaces, and it shows that trust, but it also long term allows us to be so much more agile with when we do find ways to and opportunities to improve. Because kind of before we had our own Tesco built till, we'd take 6 months to release something new, at least, maybe only yearly. And now we're doing this on sometimes on a monthly basis, or even quicker. Like if we want to, we could, but we're not at that point yet with tills. But it leads us on to also the open source side of things. So at least probably having a little bit of a heart attack here. But I'm really interested to see where open source can be utilized, not necessarily at Tesco, but just across industry, how much people are starting to open up and share those code bases, and kind of where that knowledge share can be used, and how Tesco might get involved if we decided to, how we'd make that work and how we'd benefit from it. I think it would be a real opportunity.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Also, no heart attack from me. We have tools to help you scan open source code. Embrace them.
There we go. Already ahead of it. Already ahead of the curve. We thought we've planned in advance. So fantastic to hear on that front. And again, I think fantastic for anyone listening in to hear about some of these upcoming challenges, these upcoming focuses, the things that the people within the business are super excited about. So if you are out there, you are interested, you're thinking about your next career opportunity, not only is it an incredibly welcoming environment that really supports your development, supports open discussion, and supports creating a very warm culture, there are also plenty of really intriguing, interesting technical challenges to get stuck into, to apply that knowledge that you've picked up via your career. So yeah, lots and lots to digest, I'm sure, for anyone out there listening in. So no, thank you so much for joining us today. All this leaves me to do is thank Alisha, Sadie, and Elyssa for joining us on today's podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Bill, we'll get you one of these backgrounds.
And well done for managing the minefield of Alisha and Elyssa. That was well played.
I do feel a bit left out. And then just quickly, and finally, thank you so much to everyone out there listening in. Just a final reminder, check out the podcast description. We'll have all the relevant links in there to make sure that you can get in touch with Tesco's, get in touch with the relevant departments, because I'm sure, after the fantastic content that all of our contributors have provided today, you're as intrigued as me about the potential openings at Tesco. So thank you to everyone for listening in.